This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Brewers Outlet, and Purdy Insurance.
My holiday season just got better because Wheels is on the line. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. So we haven't spoken since the Oregon game. Has anything happened in your world?
I've just been kind of going along, singing a song. Jack and I doing it side by side.
Oh my!
I'll tell you, when you Chris, when you get a chance to meet him, okay, you are going to sit back and go, "What a guy! He is
great.
He is a terrific guy." Now the plan right now is for him to join us on the Pinstripe Bowl broadcast somewhere near the end of the first quarter, or maybe just join us for the second quarter. So he's going to be on with Jack and I for the broadcast at some point.
Well, you and I have text, obviously.
Yes.
During all this stuff. And
yes.
As I told you, my only impression was watching him on that news conference, and wow, did he? Just the idea of knowing our history and just the idea that he was an experienced head coach, and he basically had that attitude, if you want to play here, good. If you don't, well, we'll move on from you. And it was great. He was just terrific, and that's why I was so interested in what you thought about him. And, you kind of summed it up.
Look, I think he has the ability, like the really good ones, he can take his and beat yours. Okay? And he can take yours and he can beat his.
Yeah.
See, I think he's got that kind of ability in him. Now, you and I both know, it's always fun talking with you because you and I, we think the same way. Okay. Well,
I don't know that that's good sometimes.
I never once mentioned whether it was a positive or a negative.
All right. Good.
No. To me, it's a positive. A huge positive. Because you and I both know that there's always going to be a process that a lot of people want to jump from A to Z, and they don't feel like doing B through Y. And he's a very process-oriented guy where he wants to make sure he takes care of B and eventually takes care of F and takes care of M and takes care of P and so forth. You're glad I did in that order. I mean, you're stunned I got the order right.
Yeah. Well, that look, as you know better than anybody from being around it, and me being the fan that I am and loving college football so much, it's just so different. And the guy who is in charge now has to be a CEO too. It's just not you show up and do X's and O's, and your assistants do this and that. And you got to have your finger on the pulse of so many things with the NIL stuff and the transfer portal and recruiting. It's just, I every once in a while I sit back and I think of how it would have spun Joe's mind to try and deal with this sort of stuff because it's crazy. But if you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Well, my daughter lives just very close to where I am, so I've got to drive up past the country club and across the street where Joe is buried. I swear over the last couple of years with NIL, I've heard something roll over. As I've been driving by, like, Joe.
Yeah.
I can't help you on this one.
I can't imagine a young Joe even dealing with it. But,
no.
Hey, it's a different world.
It is. And by the way, Joe's 99th birthday will have been Sunday. So.
Right.
Yeah.
That day means a lot to me, too. My great friend and broadcast partner, who you know and Phillies fans know so well, Andy Musser, passed away on Joe's birthday, too. Yeah. So I think about both of them on that day all the time.
Very quickly, I always felt like there's certain guys that are in that number 2 role, whatever you want to call it. Jim Woods, the possum, was one of those guys, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. I thought Andy excelled in that. I thought he was great.
Well, you're right. And, he and I were friends when I was a kid. kicking around WCAU radio in the late 60s when they, brought me in to do some things while I was still a student at Penn State. And we became friends back then. And, he left town, went to San Diego and then New York and came back. And we stayed great friends. And that's a great way to put it. Like, Bob Prince was Bob Prince, and then there was Jim Woods, and then Nellie King and those kind of guys coming along. But Harry Kalas was Harry Kalas. And then there was Richie Ashburn, too. Yeah. And then Andy Musser. So he had a role where if your ego got in the way, you may as well go somewhere else because you were never going to be Harry Kalas or Richie Ashburn in Philadelphia. I knew that, too.
Right,
but Andy really had a great feel for that. He was a terrific football announcer and basketball announcer, too. He did the Eagles at one time. He did the 76ers. He did Villanova basketball. He's a very, very talented broadcaster with zero ego and a great, great friend. So that's nice of you to say that about him because you would have liked him if you'd gotten to know him.
Right, because, man, it's one thing, like, Chris and I have always felt the same way. It means so much to the two of us when you're working with no ego people. Jack Ham has no ego. I mean, Jack has none. He's done everything and has no ego. Yeah. You wouldn't even know that he attended the Super Bowl, let alone he has 4 Super Bowl rings. But that and Nellie, I'm glad you mentioned Nellie King because I got to know Nellie King because for years he did Duquesne basketball, and I talked. And Nellie was the greatest guy. My goodness. I could talk hours with him.
He was just one of those good people, big, tall guy and all.
Yes.
Just fun to be around. I was lucky enough that, when I first started to meet those kind of guys, to know Prince a little bit. I knew Bob a little bit, and then knew Nellie. Same here. And Jim Woods and those guys. And, they did what they had to do. I knew guys in the business, too, that couldn't stand it being second banana to a great talent. And they either cut their own throats or they moved on because it was. I always looked at it and thought, hey, you're not going to win this battle. You may as well just either take 2 and hit the right or just go with a program. And Andy was great. And Nellie King was another one of them. And then, Lanny came along later as a play-by-play guy and did some Penn State football for a while. And Lanny was really, really good for the Pirates also.
Yeah, he was. And I was part of the broadcast team with Lanny in football here. So it was great. You and I also know, and we're going to mention no names, 0 names, that people that, okay, I know you've got a big ego, but I'm confused as to why.
Oh yeah. You knew them personally, or you knew when you went to the city and you were around some of the guys they work with, and their eyebrows would go up. You just realized that it was not. They weren't enjoying going to the ballpark the way that I was able to enjoy it every day of my life, and the way that you're able to enjoy it, which was unfortunate.
Exactly. Schwarber's back. Matt Strahm's on the move. Just your quick thoughts on some of the moves the Phillies have made.
Yeah, interesting. Everybody said you got to sign Schwarber. They did. and I always thought that it was going to be tougher than some people thought because the guy was going to have a market, even though he's limited, and it's a problem because you're now locked into a DH for 5 years. But the Baltimore Orioles were going to pay him the same amount of money. And he said, no, he decided he wanted to stay with the Phillies for obvious reasons. He's a hero in this town. He's one of the best human beings you ever want. You talk about a guy with no ego. I've gotten to know him. He even calls me. He says, I know we got another Wheels on this team, but you're Wheels too. So he'll call me that when he sees me. He's very, very, very good guy, and an obviously great talent, terrific in the community, terrific in the clubhouse. Look, 5 years at that kind of course, people say, was that too much? Of course it's too much, especially when you're just a DH. But they were kind of locked into doing something like that, and I'm glad they do it. And the Strahm thing today, look, Matt Strahm did a good job for the Phillies, but the game now, Steve, and you love baseball and follow it, the game now in the bullpens, you got to have a lot of guys that have swing and miss stuff. You got to make their guys swing and miss while they're trying to make your guys swing and miss in the late innings. You don't want any action. I know it's not great for the game, but you want to limit base runners. Strahm was not that kind of guy. Not a swing and miss guy at all. A contact guy, ran a lot of deep counts, got the job done for the most part. But I always thought that every time he came into the game, possibly a long ball could happen, as it did in that big playoff game against the Dodgers this year. So I understand why they moved on. The two guys that they've gotten, and Jonathan Bolin and Brad Keller in the last 2 days. I saw Keller in the playoffs last year. Big arm, heavy sinker, good breaking ball. I don't know the other guy, Bolin. He was with Kansas City. They're both huge, 6'4", 5'6" guys that throw really hard and have swing and miss stuff. So I understand where Dave Dombrowski was headed in trying to do those kind of things and try to shore up the back of your bullpen, because the Phillies, the last thing about it, the Phillies last year were the unusual team in Major League Baseball in that they had starters go deep into games and your bullpen didn't come into play as much. Well, that all goes away in the postseason because you need a lot of guys in the bullpen. I mean, the two teams that were in the World Series this year showed you that, how many guys you got to pitch. So the more depth you have in your bullpen and the more strikeout guys you have in your bullpen, I think is a positive. So I totally understand where Dave Dombrowski was going on these two moves.
Well, and there's another part to me too, Wheels, and that is in today's game, you're trying to get through in your bullpen with guys that are either having the best year of their career or the second best year of their career. They all have a shelf. They all have a shelf life, and that's why it's a revolving door, because you're trying to capture either that first or second best year. And Matt Strahm probably is beyond that right now.
Absolutely. And these two guys, when you look at their track records, they don't have a whole lot of wear and tear. They're around 30, 31, both of them, but they've been kind of up and down, and they've been starters and relievers. So they haven't been guys that have been out. And look, Keller came out of nowhere for the Cubs last year, and he's an extra piece on their staff at the beginning of the year, and he was in that last game against San Diego to clinch that series for the Cubs. So you just don't know, but it's hard to overemphasize in baseball, today's game, how important it is to have guys that strike people out, or at least heavy sinkers where they put the ball on the ground and it's not, with a lot of velocity on the ground, hard ground balls, as we used to call it. Now they call it velocity, or all the new terms. So these two guys on paper have that.
You know what terms I use? Ones that people can understand.
Amen. People say, "Do you wish you were doing it still?" I go, no. I can't imagine, having to talk about launch angle and all. I knew a ball was hit hard. I could hear it, and you could see it. You knew when a guy was throwing hard, when the guy was fouling it off the other way, those kind of things. Now, I'm not saying I don't like knowing what velocity is and all those kind of things and the launch angle. It's all fun, but we knew what it was. You knew guys that hit the ball hard, and you can hear it, and you can still hear it.
Well, there's it's interesting you bring that up, because I was talking this week on the show about not enough people in our business have a concept of history. Right? To them, history was last week. Like, okay, great. Because history is a great teacher. And also the other part, too, is you don't broadcast to the analytics department. You don't broadcast to the critics. You broadcast for the fans. If they can understand what's going on in the game because of what you're saying, you've done your job.
Yeah, simplify things is really a good thing. And that was one of the things that I was so impressed by in that press conference. Talking about Massillon, Ohio, and Todd Blackledge, and saying, talking about Kyle Brady, and talking about going in the latch and seeing those plaques and things all over the place. I mean, when Matt Campbell said those kind of things, I mean, it was when Harry Met Sally, he had me at whatever that line was in that movie. And, I just thought, wow, this guy has a clue. He knows what this. Look, he's from Ohio. He's from the Midwest, and then when you said those things about Terry Smith and Gateway and all that, you thought, man, that's a great start right there with a guy that has a feel for this environment that he's coming into. Now, he has no idea what it's going to be like to go through that tunnel the first time. I know what it was like when I would be lucky enough to go out there and I'd see you, and I'd walk through that gate, and nobody's in the ballpark and in the stadium, and you look up and you got to be kidding me what this place is like. So it'll be quite I saw the video of him when he saw it for the first time, and he went, wow. But Willie comes out there sometime the first time and it's packed and he hears those roars.
Well, his wife had tears in her eyes. She was welling up. Like holy mackerel. It was like, that was, I mean, it's interesting. I was talking, it's not a coach I was talking to. I was talking to a staff member this morning at practice. And I said, you decided what you want to do yet? He goes, nah. He says, I'm getting there. He says, the biggest problem? I said, what's that? I says, is that he's such a nice guy. I said, well, it must be a living hell in your life to have that problem.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing wrong with being a nice guy as long as you know when to throw the switch and be the other guy that you have to be.
You know what?
To have discipline and respect are a pretty good combination, I always thought.
You know what? I was talking with Jake Waters yesterday, who's going to be the quarterback's coach. Yeah. And he says, he's great with the players. He said, but when it comes time for him to get at you and be serious, he'll get at you and he'll be serious. He said he knows the balance between the two. Interesting you brought that up.
Well, that's great to hear because he had Matt Campbell had in that press conference had every range of emotion. He was so real right to when he first opened his mouth and he choked me up when he did it, because I thought, I can't imagine what it must be like standing in that room and knowing that you are now the head coach of Penn State University with our history and his knowledge of the Penn State history growing up in Ohio and understanding it and the burden that he had to feel, knowing what we've been through after what happened with James and losing your recruiting class like that, and knowing what you have to get started and put a staff together and get to my beloved transfer portal. You and I talk about that all the time, but it's a necessary evil. And then all the things that they have to do to try and keep the kids there. I saw what King Mack said. I think I saw a quote where King Mack basically said, that Campbell basically said, look, you want to be here? Good. If you don't want to be here, fine. And I love that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Terry told him the same thing, too, about the game. So you want to be here? Fine. You don't want to be here? Have a good one. He said, and we'll help you. We'll help you. It's interesting because I had mentioned him about Jack. Of course, I said, Jack's usually here Thursday, Friday. He goes, no, really? I said, yeah. well, hey, the way we understand it, and we talked about it today, he's going to join us on the broadcast either near the end of the first quarter or maybe in the second quarter at the Pinstripe Bowl. And I'm just going to let Jack ask him as many questions as he wants. I think it's going to be a fascinating listen. I can slip in a play here or there as they're going through. Because I think people want to hear Jack Ham talk to Matt Campbell. They don't, they're going to hear how many times I talk to Matt, how many times over the next few years, quarterback club, pregame show, talk show, postgame show, right? But the chance for he and Jack to talk in the air, I think it's going to be something fascinating. And I can slip in a play here or there just to keep everybody up to date on where the ball is.
Well, I got the feeling the way he was talking that he couldn't wait to meet Jack Ham. I think I saw something where he was walking through the Flash building with Pat Kraft, and Pat said something about that Jack Ham does our games, and he said, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I'm going to get to know him. Well, yeah, you sure are. And knowing Jack Ham, he's going to look forward to get to know you. I'm lucky enough to be in his company a few times with you, and he one of my idols, and then to be around him, he was just such an easy guy to be around.
That means, again, no ego. I mean, none. I mean, And it's just fascinating to see people with him because he's kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no big deal. One time I was with him, he wanted to talk about Harry Callis because he worked with him.
Oh, yeah, he did. Oh, absolutely. All right. But one of my favorites is that we used to, and you came over with Renee when we did the pregame shows out at the Jordan Center. And
right.
So during the commercial breaks, people would be lined up and Jack would go over and he'd sign, right? Then there'd be some poor schlep asking me to sign something. I'm like going, really? Are you sure?
Really, right.
It's like, come on. All right, sure. So one day we're doing it, and we get to a commercial break, and there's nobody standing there. And Jack looks at me, he says, well, I guess the thrill is gone. And I looked over at him. I said, Jack, we've been sitting here for 15 years. Don't you think you've run out of people?
Yeah, really. Yeah. Well, to me, having been around, and you have too, but I've been around so many great athletes. I've been so lucky to be around so many of them, and broadcasters, and the people with a self-deprecating humor like that are always the most real and the easiest to be around. I always found that.
Absolutely, my good friend. Happy holidays to you. I think everyone knows how special you are to me, so you are the best.
Well, thank you, my friend. You know how I feel about you, and I'll be listening to the. Can't wait for the Pinstripe Bowl. I hope we have enough players there that'll be able to put up a fight against Clemson. What do you think, real quick?
I was at practice this morning. I'm anxious to watch. First of all, there are more veterans playing than people realize.
Good.
Number two, there are certain young players that I'm really excited to see them get their chance. And that part is going to be exciting. I think there was a story out this week about, Penn State, they may be thinning the offensive line, running back, wide receiver. Whomever wrote that, all the wideouts are playing. So they're all out there. I mean, they're all playing. I mean, they'll be fine at wide out, tight end, and I'm anxious to see the young running backs out there.
Yep.
So
Yep.
It'll be fun.
Well, the other two guys gave us great thrills, and you were describing that stuff at the end when they were breaking records and everything. Gave me chills listening to it. What a great job that Allen and Singleton did, and forever, ever, we'll love them.
Absolutely. One of the great 1-2 tandems we've ever had here.
Ooh,
perfect. People probably think this is a pretty good 1-2 tandem for the last 25 minutes, which flew by in about 2 seconds.
Well, we'll keep. I turned 80 this year, so let's keep it going as long as I can still put words together.
And believe me, you'll have the capability for many years to come.
I'm just going to start blocking off. I'm just going to start blocking off a whole hour.
You too, my friend. And next time we talk, I'll be in Florida.
Hi, that sounds great. Thanks, Wills.
Yeah. See you. All right, buddy. Bye.
All right.
I'm just going to start blocking off the whole hour.
He's the greatest. You just don't get better people than that. You just don't. God, I love the guy. We'll come back more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WK.